Hello everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic Wrestling back once again, and let's all step together through the Forbidden Door. That's right, it's time to talk about everything that happened at AEW/New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door 2024. Let's go. A stacked card full of matches to talk about, so let's waste no time and get straight into the first match of the pre-show, Kyle Fletcher versus Serpentico. Fletcher is dominant immediately in this one with a big kick to the face at the opening bell. He then goes for the mask of Serpentico and tries to rip it off. You can't do that. Serpentico gets like a few glimpses of offense here and there, but this is a short one. Kyle catches him with a belly-to-back pile driver kind of thing. Serpentico's done. He could easily cover Serpentico at this point, but instead scoops him up, takes him up top, and hits a very delayed Sami Zayn-esque brainbuster into the top turnbuckle, and that's it. 1, 2, 3. Kyle Fletcher wins, and he looks very strong in the process. The second pre-show match is a four-way tag team match between Malakai Black and Brody King, Private Party, Roddy Strong and Gabe Kidd, and Kyle O'Reilly and the Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii. We begin with a martial arts strike exchange between Kyle and Malakai, then Ishii tags in and he wants a big boy battle with Big Brody King. They do that for a while, clobbering each other until some of the other wrestlers tag in. Roddy at this point shares a very meaningful glance with Kyle O'Reilly on the apron. Ooh. But we learn no further developments on their relationship in this match. Instead, Roddy argues with Gabe Kidd, his own partner, over who has the better chops. They shove each other for a while, then they both try and chop Ishii, who just doesn't move. Ishii then runs wild until the Kingdom interfere from the outside, but he shakes them off and continues to dish out some punishment. That includes a terrifying brainbuster on Brody King, who seems to land right on his head. Hopefully he's okay. He seems to be fine because he then absolutely drops Gabe Kidd with some big strikes a short while after. Private Party then fly onto everyone on the outside with stereo dives, but back in the ring, they get taken out with a Black Mass to Quen and a Gonzo Bomb to Cassidy, and Malakai and Brody pick up the win. The third pre-show match is Kris Statlander and Momo Watanabe taking on the team of Willow Nightingale and Tam Nakano. Willow begins the match and of course wants her big rival and former friend Statlander to tag in, but she doesn't until Willow has tagged out. Boo! It's classic heel stuff. Statlander, right, early on, Statlander talks trash to Tam, and I think, I'm not certain, but I think she calls her Momo by accident, which is her own partner's name. She goes, "What are you going to do, Momo?" And I'm like, that's Tam. Anyway, it might not have happened. Sorry if I've been unfair there. The two Stardom wrestlers get in and they exchange strikes for a while. Then Stokely distracts the ref from the outside, allowing Statlander to give her partner a hand behind the referee's back. More heelish tactics prevent Willow from tagging in a little bit later on, and the heels stay in control. Nakano finally gets the hot tag to Willow and she batters Statlander until she quickly tags out to Momo and bails to the apron, and the crowd do not like that. Willow takes out Momo with a big spinebuster, but Statlander breaks up the pinfall. Then the other two tag in, and Nakano hits a lovely bridging German suplex on Statlander, but again it's only a near fall. Nakano then hits a lovely tiger suplex on Statlander, leaving the way open for Willow to destroy Momo Watanabe with an avalanche Death Valley driver, and that's it. 1, 2, no! Momo kicks out. In fact, she even then gets a very near fall of her own on Willow before getting hit with the pounce. Willow tags out, nails Statlander with a dropkick off the apron, and then in the ring, Tam Nakano hits another very nice bridging German on Momo and gets the win for the babyfaces. Good result for them on the night, but what does this mean for Willow's chances in the Owen Hart Cup against Statlander? I think it makes a win for Willow less likely. The fourth pre-show match is the Owen Hart tournament match between Mariah May and Saraya. Early on, Saraya is distracted by Toni Storm and Harley Cameron arguing on the outside, and Mariah May almost rolls her up for an instant 3, but Saraya kicks out. The match goes on, and Mariah takes control with a very spinning side suplex. Lots of spins in that one, but again, it's only a 2 count. Saraya avoids a Toni Storm-esque hip attack in the corner, and a bit later on pulls Mariah into the ring post by her hair and takes control of the match. She drops to the outside and calls Toni Storm a cow, and Toni responds by calling Saraya a loser and does the L shape as well, just to hammer the point home. Mariah narrowly beats a count-out back into the ring. She then lands a big headbutt and wins a strike exchange, firing up to then hit the hip attack in the corner, and now the babyface-ish is in control. Harley Cameron distracts the referee, but Toni yanks her off the apron, but this inadvertently distracts Mariah May as well, who is caught by Saraya with the page turner, 1-2, but Mariah gets a hand on the bottom rope at the last second. Saraya sets up for her finisher, but Mariah reverses it with a nice roll-up, 1, 2, 3. She gets the win and progresses in the tournament to face Hikaru Shida. Saraya is furious while Mariah and Toni celebrate on the stage, but here comes Mina Shirakawa, and she raises Mariah's hand as well. Her and Toni argue ahead of the title match later on. And the fifth and final match on the pre-show, and probably the best one as well, is the Lucha Bros and Mystico taking on Los Ingobernables de Japón, represented by Hiromu Takahashi, Yota Tsuji, and Titan. Rey Fenix and Titan begin the match by chopping each other very hard in the chest. They then have a nice lucha exchange which ends in a stalemate, but like a flippy headspring stalemate because they're luchadors. Yota Tsuji and Penta are in next, and Penta says he has zero miedo, but Tsuji just smiles and kind of shoves him lightly. Tsuji's a weird guy, but a scary, big, strong one as well, which is kind of his whole gimmick. He's very good. He proves this, in fact, by stomping Penta's head into the canvas, but the Lucha Bro fires up. He wants a big dive to the outside, but Tsuji just walks away, and Penta poses in the ring instead, and the crowd are happy about that. Takahashi tries to rip off Mystico's mask, the second such spot of the night, but Mystico fights back and goes for a big dive, only for the other LIJ members to cut him off and beat him down. They whip him into the ropes, which is fine by Mystico because that means he can complete his dive on the outside onto Takahashi. Fair enough. A little bit later on, Titan and Tsuji hit stereo dives of their own. Back in the ring, Takahashi nails a sunset bomb over the ropes on Mystico to the outside and then brags about it right into the ringside camera. Look how happy he is. The heels isolate Mystico for a while and hit a series of big moves, but he survives and fights them all off to make the hot tag. Fenix gets his lovely tightrope walk kick to Titan and assumes control of the match, but only for a short while because then everyone gets in and hits big moves on each other, culminating in Titan taking out Fenix with a huge super kick, and everyone's down. A little bit later on, Fenix boosts Mystico into a twisting dive to the outside. Very nice indeed. Back in the ring, the Lucha Bros hit the Fear Factor on Hiromu, and then Mystico comes back in and gets La Mystica on Titan for the submission victory. This was fast-paced, very frantic, and the crowd were really into it. A lovely big babyface win to close the pre-show. The opening match of the main portion of the show sees Hechicero take on hometown boy MJF, who does some crowd surfing during his entrance. Very nice. We have a tense grappling exchange to start, then MJF goes for a handshake, which Hechicero tentatively accepts, only to get kicked in the gut, of course. MJF then outsmarts Hechicero with a nice head spring and an eye poke, but then Hechicero uses the ref as a shield, grabs MJF by the trunks, and throws him out of the ring. But the Long Islander continues to press the advantage on the outside and hits a big running knee, sending Hechicero over into the timekeeper's area. However, MJF then wastes time posing on the apron, and Hechicero yanks his arm over the top rope before continuing to work the limb. Hechicero counters the Heat Seeker and gets a near fall off a twisting splash. He then hits a huge knee strike in the corner and mocks MJF's strutting before flipping off the crowd. MJF fights back and gets a pile driver, but his arm hurts too much to make the cover. Then a bit of lucha submission wizardry from Hechicero sees MJF get flipped into the air and caught in an armbar, but MJF gets out of it and applies the salt of the earth, only for Hechicero to roll him into a near fall. MJF then gets out of a crucifix armbar with both arms trapped by stretching out his boot and getting it on the bottom rope, but he is in pain. He does manage to fire up though and gets the 9 punches in the corner, followed by the bite to the head, before hitting Panama Sunrise and a big brainbuster for the win. As expected, the hometown boy wins the opening match. The next match is the Elite, the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada, versus the team of the Acclaimed and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Max Caster gets a particularly long entrance rap this time, which takes shots at Joe Biden's debate performance and Justin Timberlake's arrest, but I think the best bit is saying he'll kill Okada like the Bucks killed Okada's career, which I took to mean like by bringing him to AEW and he's no longer the undisputed top star. That's kind of how I interpreted it anyway, but lyrics are subjective, you guys. Okada and Tanahashi have a big stare down near the start, but Okada tags out immediately to big heat. The faces take down the Bucks, and Bowens hits a big double scissor me timbers on both of them at the same time. All the faces scissor each other and plays simultaneous air guitar, but then Okada tags in shortly afterwards, and he helps the heel team take control. Nicholas Jackson puts on Max Caster's headphones, and Okada does a bit of dancing, I guess, in the background. Okay, you cheeky boy. Matthew Jackson smashes an invisible guitar, and the crowd start to chant CM Punk as the Young Bucks are grandstanding, but in fairness, other fans do try and drown out the chants. And I'm trying to accurately reflect both sides of the argument here, guys, okay? I'm trying my very best. Caster gets the big tag to Bowens, who runs wild and even drops Okada with a big right hand. Both teams take each other down with double clotheslines, and it's left to the two old New Japan rivals, finally both the legal men of the match again. Tanahashi gets 2 off a middle rope senton and locks in a Texas cloverleaf, but Matthew Jackson gets in and breaks it up with a head kick. Bowens reverses the Rainmaker with the Arrival, followed by the mic drop from Caster. Tanahashi goes up for the high fly flow, but the Bucks grab his legs from the apron. The Acclaimed drag the Bucks away though, and Tanahashi flies, only for Okada to get the knees up. The Bucks hit super kicks to everybody, and then Okada hits Tanahashi with a top rope elbow drop, but Tanahashi counters the Rainmaker with a roll-up for a very close 2 count. Okada manages though to get his huge drop kick and the Rainmaker, 1, 2, 3, and Okada beats his old foe. He even goes for another Rainmaker after the bell, but Daddy Ass runs down to chase him away. The faces help a hurt Tanahashi out of the ring, and he's very sad indeed. Next up, it's the Battle of the Dragons, not in a Game of Thrones way, but in a wrestling way. It's Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi in the Owen Hart tournament. We get grappling to start, which Danielson seems to have the edge in, locking in a couple of submissions, but Shingo fights back with a big shoulder block. However, it's really Bryan who stays on top of things early on until Shingo catches him off a dive to the outside and hits a big apron-assisted neck breaker. Bryan sells this very hard, and even the doctor comes over to check on him. Bryan just beats the count back into the ring, but Shingo immediately presses the advantage. They exchange strikes, and Bryan gets dropped with a big right hand, but he then avoids a sliding lariat and kicks Shingo in the head. Bryan flips out of a German suplex and hits one of his own. He heads up top, Shingo follows him up, but Bryan outmaneuvers Shingo and hits a big back superplex. Shingo catches a yes kick, but Bryan just slaps him in the face and locks in a triangle submission. Shingo powers out of it though and nails a big slam. A superplex by Shingo and a sliding lariat only gets 2. Bryan then gets clobbered with a pumping bomber lariat and the Made in Japan, but again he kicks out just in time. However, Danielson is now struggling badly, and Shingo mocks the yes taunts and even hits some Bryan-esque elbows of his own. Another big sliding lariat is countered though into a label lock attempt, but Shingo just about slips out. Bryan sets up for the running knee and nails it to the delight of the crowd, but Shingo kicks out just in time. Bryan looks defeated. How am I going to put this guy away? But then he looks determined and says he's going to kick Shingo's flipping head in, which he does before locking in a triangle with added elbows. Shingo once again stands up out of the triangle and slams Bryan down, but Bryan hangs on and transitions into like a double arm lock for the submission victory. Bryan Danielson wins the match and progresses in the tournament to face Pac. We get a nice moment after the final bell with Bryan showing respect to Shingo and the crowd giving him a nice ovation. And yes, this was a very good match, as you'd expect given the names involved. Next up, the AEW Women's World Championship match. Toni Storm defending against Mina Shirakawa, with Mariah May there to support both women. Surely this can only end well, right? Toni comes out dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Mariah presents flowers to both competitors in the ring before the match, but she kind of looks very unhappy and conflicted with this predicament. Mina does a bit of dancing early on, which Toni isn't a fan of, and she beats her down. But Mina fights back and works the leg, even locking in a Bret Hart figure 4 around the ring post. Toni fights back with a backstabber and a bridging fisherman suplex, but it only gets 2. A hip attack knocks Mina to the outside, but then a second one misses, and Toni crashes into the ring steps. Mina follows this up with a top rope crossbody, which sends Luther tumbling over as well. Hey, he's great fun. Back inside, Toni gets a near fall off a sit-out powerbomb, but Mina locks in a figure 4 shortly afterwards. Toni finally gets out of this after a while and lays in some right hands, but then Mina just drops her with a big rolling elbow. They head up top where Mina hits a huge DDT back down into the ring and then a lifting DDT, but Toni again kicks out. Toni avoids Mina's finisher and hits a big release German suplex, followed by the hip attack for another near fall, and then Mina gets a very unique pinning predicament secured. I believe it's the Glamorous Collection Mina, but Toni just kicks out in time. Mina floors Toni with more elbows and she's really fired up, but Toni survives her signature driver, kicking out just in time again, and then hits some headbutts followed by Storm Zero, and that's it. Toni wins, but I feel like it's important to mention that Mina was on top for the majority of this match, and I think the story is that Toni really had to dig deep. Storm picks up Mina after the bell and the challenger offers her a handshake. Toni accepts and then Mariah May urges them to hug and they do, and then Mariah urges them to have a kiss and they all have a little kiss. Biggest pop of the night from the crowd. Nigel McGuinness on commentary is so moved by these scenes that we see him standing and tearfully applauding as they all leave the ring. Next up, we get Saber Jr. versus Orange Cassidy. Zack gets the better of the opening exchange and mocks the hands in pockets taunt. They then exchange kip-ups and Cassidy takes a slow lap of honor around the outside, which Zack mockingly applauds. He then sits on the middle rope to welcome Orange back into the ring, but of course OC rolls in under the bottom rope instead. Defiance. More counters inside and Orange traps the leg, but Zack isn't concerned, voluntarily opening Cassidy's pocket for him to put his hand in. OC goes to do it, but instead drives his knuckles into Zack's legs. They do some more smooth chain wrestling, exchanging hip toss attempts up over the top rope to the apron and back inside, where Zack twists the neck with his feet and Cassidy needs a breather outside the ring. He gets back in and Zack continues to tie him up, but a rope break brings them back to their feet. Zack then lays in some European uppercuts and a few Cassidy-style light kicks, followed by a hard kick right to the chest. Orange hits a dropkick to the knee and a big dragon screw, and now it's Zack who needs recovery time on the outside, but he doesn't get it because Cassidy follows up with a big dive and another couple of dragon screws as well, showing his slightly more ruthless side. Back inside, Zack counters Stun Dog Millionaire, but Cassidy hits a Michinoku driver for 2, followed by a diving DDT for another near fall. The Orange Punch is caught by Zack and he stomps on the elbow. He then breaks the fingers of Orange and looks to press the advantage, but Orange gets another rope break and now locks in a Texas Cloverleaf. Zack gets out by grabbing the injured fingers, but Cassidy lifts him into a beach break, but again it's only enough for 2. Orange looks for the Orange Punch and gets it, but Zack isn't fully affected and fires back with a big kick, as commentary speculate that the damage to Cassidy's hand has compromised his move. Great psychology there. A series of pinfall counters then leads to Cassidy bridging backwards with his hands in his pockets, but Zack slips out of the pinfall attempt. Cassidy then almost gets the mousetrap, but Zack again escapes and ties up multiple limbs at once for the verbal submission. A very nice technical match here, proving Orange's versatility and of course Zack's technical prowess. After the bell, Saber presents Cassidy with his sunglasses in a little show of respect. About as respectful as Zack gets really, and Cassidy looks a little bit rueful. Next up, it's the team of Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata against the team of Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and Jeff Cobb. I am the learning tree. Hi guys, as Jericho would say. In fact, Jericho grabs the mic at the start and points out to the crowd that he's from Long Island and is therefore their hometown hero. Thanks guys. Bill starts things off by just dropping Shibata with a big boot. Jericho tags in, but Shibata no-sells his chops before laying in some heavier ones of his own. Jericho goes for a crossbody, but Hook and Shibata simultaneously do Joe's walkaway spot, which Joe enjoys very much from the apron. Cobb tags in, and so does Joe, which the crowd really enjoy. Joe wins the exchange until Cobb catches him with a huge slam and then knocks the other two guys off the apron just because. Joe fights back and gets the tag to Hook, who runs wild and goes for a big suplex on Big Bill, but Jericho stops him. Bryan Keith distracts Hook from the outside, which allows the heels to regain control, and now Hook's in trouble. Keith again gets involved from the outside while Jericho distracts the ref, and then Jericho chokes Hook over the rope with his knee while shouting, "Hi Taz!" to Taz at the announce table. The heels continue to pick Hook apart, but he kicks out of an impressive standing moonsault from Jeff Cobb. A little bit later on, Shibata blocks a lionsault with knees, and the action spills to the outside as Hook takes down Bill with a huge double axe handle from the top rope all the way to the floor. Bryan Keith again gets involved, distracting the referee as Jericho low blows Shibata before locking in the walls, but Shibata hangs on and kicks himself free. Bill nails Joe with a choke slam and Cobb slings Shibata away with a spinning suplex, but then Hook grabs a big suplex of his own on Cobb. Jericho then flies in with a code breaker on Hook, but he kicks out at 2. All three faces grab simultaneous rear naked chokes. Jericho tries to roll Hook up. Hook kicks out and then flattens Jericho with the Judas effect and pins him, and the face team picks up the win. Taz is loving it on commentary. Next is the 6-way ladder match for the TNT Championship. Jack Perry, Dante Martin, Lio Rush, Mark Briscoe, Konosuke Takeshita, and El Fantasmo all squaring off. Jack Perry bails out of the ring to start, but the other wrestlers follow and surround him, so he runs back into the ring where he gets flattened by a Takeshita elbow. Everybody else takes it to Takeshita now, and the remaining 4 all get ladders and throw them into each other, and then they all fight each other, yeah! Mark Briscoe gets a table involved, but Leo dives over it like he's in the Matrix to hit a clothesline or like a diving forearm. Meanwhile, in the ring, Jack Perry's all alone and he climbs a ladder. Leo gets in and stops him, so Perry tries to whip Leo into a ladder in the corner, but Rush nimbly slides to avoid it and takes Perry out with a big roundhouse kick. Phantasmo then, we get the first big destructive spot of the match. He puts Leo Rush through a ladder in the corner with like a spinning Death Valley driver kind of thing. It looks very painful. After this, Takeshita takes control, and this looks painful too. Brainbusters Dante onto the narrow side of a ladder. Ooh. Briscoe does the Terry Funk helicopter spot before just throwing the ladder in Leo's face. He then lays Takeshita on a table outside and puts a ladder on top of him, and then gets back in the ring and uses a chair like Sabu to step up on it, fly out of the ring, and put Takeshita through the table. Jack Perry is again alone in the ring, but Phantasmo climbs onto a ladder bridge to stop him with a nipple cripple of all things. Dante heads up now and gets tipped off, where he sells the leg heavily, a reference to him legitimately breaking his leg in the last ladder match he was involved in. He remains in the match though, leaping between the ropes later on in the corner, kind of like Sami Zayn but feet first, to drop kick Jack Perry, but he's still heavily selling the leg. Leo dives through a ladder onto Takeshita like Darby Allin would, very impressive indeed. Meanwhile, Mark Briscoe climbs all the way to the top of a ladder on the apron and frog splashes Jack Perry on a table on the outside, and the table doesn't even break. Dante and Leo climb now towards the belt at the same time, and they both reach for it, but Takeshita's there to stop them both, even powerbombing Leo into a ladder in the corner. Leo Rush, he takes a lot of punishment in this match. Phantasmo now springboards into the ring to stop Takeshita, and they end up fighting on the apron, where Takeshita hits a massive blue thunder bomb through a pair of tables on the outside, which, I don't know if I was the only one who thought this, it looks terrifying, but also like really aesthetically pleasing. I'm sure Phantasmo appreciates that. The crowd are now very behind Takeshita, and he climbs, but Mark Briscoe stops him with a chair to the back, followed by a J-driller through a ladder below. Now Mark climbs, but Jack Perry gets in and beats Mark down with a ladder and then a chair, and then steps on his back on his way up the ladder to become TNT champion. Jack Perry has done it, and I guess it was a little bit of an anticlimactic ending given all the carnage we've just witnessed, but he is a heel, so it did work in that regard. Next up, the winner-take-all match between the TBS champion Mercedes Moné and the New Japan Strong Women's champion Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie headbutts Mercedes during the referee's instructions, and she has the early advantage. Mercedes works her way back into it, and they exchange Lucha-style pinfall attempts. Vaquer then displays some very impressive Phoenix-esque rope-walking abilities into a nice arm drag. Moné almost gets the bank statement, but Vaquer gets out of it, but then Mercedes hits a head scissors on the outside. Moné hits a Meteora back into the ring for a 2 count, but shortly afterwards, Stephanie nails a big springboard crossbody all the way to the outside. Back in the ring, Mercedes goes for the 3 amigos, but Vaquer counters the third one and flies into like a legs-first octopus-style submission, but Moné struggles free. Stephanie gets another head scissors type hold locked in and uses it to repeatedly ram Moné's head into the mat, very unique. Mercedes counters a crossbody attempt with a mid-air dropkick and follows up with running knees in the corner, as well as a nice rope-assisted tornado DDT, but it only gets a near fall. Mercedes wants the Moné Maker, but Stephanie counters with a DDT of her own and a roll-up for 2. She then misses a leg drop, and Moné catches her in a backslide position, standing up for another Moné Maker attempt, but it gets countered into an attempt at Vaquer's signature double underhook piledriver finisher, but Moné avoids this too. Double kip-ups, Moné's is a bit shaky, and Vaquer rolls her into a crossface, but Mercedes gets out and she flips into a crossface of her own, but Stephanie powers up out of it and then drops Moné down into double knees. It's worth mentioning at this point that the crowd is starting to audibly boo Moné and cheer for Stephanie. Commentary theorized that this is because, Moné's from Boston and this is a Long Island, New York crowd, and that seems to be verified later on as we get F the Red Sox chants. Mercedes gets the backstabber and a second one. She laughs at the crowd booing her and heads up for the frog splash, which Stephanie avoids and hits a nice dragon screw leg whip. Running knees in the corner from Stephanie this time, but Moné again avoids the pile driver and locks in another crossface. Vaquer gets out, but the Moneymaker is avoided only once, not a second time, as Mercedes nails it and then locks in a crossface for the instant submission, and Mercedes Moné is now a double champion. But that's not all, as Mercedes celebrates with both belts. The Doctor will see you now. That's right, to a massive reaction, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, makes her long-awaited return. She gets pyro, she gets a nice reception, and she poses on the stage. And it's very clear that this is the next big match for Mercedes Moné. Before the next match, we get a big pay-per-view announcement. Wrestle Dynasty on January 5th, the day after next year's New Japan Wrestle Kingdom. This is going to be a cross-promotional event between New Japan, AEW, Ring of Honor, Stardom, and CMLL. Kind of similar vibes to Forbidden Door, I guess, but the location of it just after Wrestle Kingdom is very interesting indeed. What follows is the IWGP World Heavyweight title match, Jon Moxley defending against Tetsuya Naito. The champion gets his New Japan theme music and is wearing a New Japan track jacket and coming out through the crowd as usual. Big reception for Moxley, of course. Moxley hits some elbow strikes right off the bat and beats Naito down a bit, but Naito spits in his face and does the Tranquillo pose. Moxley tries to stomp him and Naito rolls to the outside, the cheeky scamp. Naito gets a chair to lounge in the middle of the ring. Moxley gets a chair of his own, maybe not to do the same thing, but we don't find out as Red Shoes, the referee, takes it away. Moxley takes Naito down with a few lariats in the corner and mocks the Tranquillo pose as Naito writhes on the canvas. The action spills to the outside where Moxley slams Naito on the Spanish announce table, and then back inside, Naito again spits at Moxley, who works his leg for a bit before nailing a piledriver, but it only gets 2. More strikes from Moxley and more spitting from Naito, who gets a hit with a high-angle back suplex, but again Moxley can't put him away. They head up top where Moxley hits repeated headbutts, but Naito slips out the bottom and just shoves Moxley all the way to the outside. Naito runs around the ring and hits kind of a clumsy tackle on Moxley down the side of the announce table, and then Naito just grabs a section of the crowd barricade and starts bashing Moxley over the head with it. The ref doesn't DQ him, but I should point out that New Japan tends to have more relaxed rules when it comes to this sort of stuff outside of the ring. Back inside, they exchange suplexes and Moxley hits a running knee, but then he goes for a figure 4 and Naito rolls him into a small package for 2. They go up top again and Naito looks for a Frankensteiner, but Moxley reverses it into a big avalanche powerbomb for another near fall. Naito fights back with a couple of DDT variations, then Moxley grabs a rear naked choke, but Naito slips out and hits his finisher, Destino. He doesn't make the cover though, instead going for a second Destino, which Moxley reverses into the Death Rider, and both men are down. They slowly get to their feet and Moxley just clobbers Naito with a lariat, followed by another Death Rider, but Naito just about kicks out. Moxley thinks it's a slow count, he isn't happy with the referee, and grabs a chair in frustration. He sets it up in the ring and goes for a Death Rider onto the chair, but the ref takes it away. Both men avoid each other's finishes down the stretch, and Naito hits a brainbuster, followed by another Destino, and that's enough for the 3 count. Tetsuya Naito is once again IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, and Jon Moxley has lost the damn belt. But I'm sure it'll be okay though, because now he gets to sit back and watch the main event of the night. Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland for Swerve's AEW World Championship. Ospreay has a Hayabusa-inspired entrance, while New York rapper and record exec Jim Jones introduces Swerve. They tie up in the ropes to start, and we get a clean break from Swerve, but Ospreay doesn't care and hits a forearm to the face. They then exchange strikes and, both flip out of each other's head scissor attempts, and the crowd comes alive. A little bit later on, Swerve heads up top, but Ospreay kips up and they have a stare down. Swerve then ends up on the outside of the ring, and Ospreay hits a crossbody, followed by a drive-by drop kick. Let's all take this moment to acknowledge our tribal chief. They go back and forth back in the ring, but the action again spills to the outside. Swerve tries to whip Ospreay into the crowd barricade, but he jumps over it, only to get tripped up on the way back in and lands on top of the barricade. They both then balance on top of the barricade, and Ospreay hits a very precarious Hurricane Rana off it, before following up with a springboard elbow back inside the ring, but it only gets 2. Swerve starts to work the arm of Ospreay, who starts to fire up and no-sell strikes. They exchange forearms and gradually exchange moves faster and faster, both avoiding each other's blows, until suddenly Swerve ducks a hidden blade, but Ospreay catches him with a Styles Clash, but it's only a near fall. We briefly see a shot of Daniel Garcia watching from high in the crowd as Swerve and Ospreay go for simultaneous springboard moves and collide in midair, but it's kind of hard to see who came off worse. Swerve misses a charge towards the apron, but he dives and rolls nimbly to the outside, then meets Ospreay up on the top and hits a huge back superplex back into the ring. They battle on the apron where Ospreay misses an Os cutter and crashes hard on the apron, but he rolls out the way of a Swerve stomp to the outside, so Strickland instead flies all the way over to the outside and stomps Ospreay right on top of the announce table, which doesn't give. Swerve thinks about putting Ospreay back in the ring, but instead takes him up under the crowd barricade again and this time nails a nasty pile driver. Back in the ring, he only gets 2 and can't believe it, so he looks for another Swerve stomp, but Ospreay shoves the ropes to unbalance him. Ospreay goes up top and hits a springboard Os cutter, followed by his usual one in the middle of the ring, but they only get 2. Swerve blocks the hidden blade with his forearms and catches another Os cutter attempt, looking to snap Ospreay's arm, but he gets cradled for a near fall instead. Another Os cutter connects, followed by the Stormbreaker, 1-2, but Swerve kicks out of Ospreay's finisher, and we see MJF watching on from backstage. Ospreay headbutts Swerve and goes for the Tiger Driver, but Strickland counters it into a pinfall attempt for 2, followed by a hidden blade, stealing Ospreay's signature move. He goes for another Swerve stomp, but Ospreay moves and charges for a hidden blade of his own, which Swerve ducks, and the ref gets taken out. A Poison Rana connects from Swerve, but Ospreay hits an instinctive hidden blade to the back of the champion's head. He covers Swerve, but there's no ref. Here comes Don Callis to ringside, who offers a screwdriver to Ospreay. Prince Nana shoves Callis to the floor, and Ospreay threatens Nana with the screwdriver, but then he realizes, "What have I become, bruv?" And he throws the screwdriver away. He can't bring himself to use it. He gets back in the ring and is immediately blasted with a house call from Swerve, followed by the Swerve stomp just as the replacement ref runs down for the 1-2, but Ospreay kicks out. Swerve now does snap the arm of Ospreay and hits another house call for the 1-2. Again, Ospreay kicks out and now he's firing up. Ospreay rips off the elbow pad, but he's very wobbly and throws a weak hidden blade, which Swerve easily catches. He pats Ospreay's head, then hits another house call and the big pressure. 1-2-3. Ospreay has his first AEW loss, and Swerve Strickland is still the AEW World Champion. Swerve consoles Ospreay after the bell as Ospreay's stablemate Kyle Fletcher watches on from outside the ring. And yeah, that's it. Will Ospreay has lost. Swerve Strickland is still the AEW World Champion. And we'll have to see what the ramifications are with regards to the Don Callis family. And there you have it. That is everything that happened in a 15-match show. That was AEW/New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door 2024. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Thank you to Joel and Luke on the edit for this video. Leave your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below, and I'll see you very soon.